I came to an independent conclusions on it. But I think there's unwillingness to, there's a certain unwillingness on the part of what's called the left or the liberal left to think freely, and that unwillingness has been exacerbated by cancel culture, and a tendency to want to call anyone who disagrees with you a reactionary or a conservative or backward. You know this fellow Bill Maher, he has this kind of dripping contempt for anybody who harbors religious beliefs, and this and it's in that respect there's a large overlap between, even though Bill Maher is very anti-cancel culture and anti-PC, there's this kind of secular contempt for people who harbor religious beliefs and to just assume they're backward. So if you support, if you oppose abortion, you must be a Catholic, and you must be a primitive, backward, rural, hick, Southern Catholic, you know. And it's always dripping with contempt, as if it's impossible that, yes, your belief is informed by your Catholicism, but maybe there are some positive things in Catholicism. The fact that somebody is religious doesn't mean that each and every viewpoint of theirs is backward. I don't see that.
And what would be the desire for someone such as a Bill Maher? How do you view him wishing the world to evolve toward, would you say? Because what you say about diversity and this and that, diversity in and of itself is, it's the specifics of diversity that create unity itself, right? Unity would be everyone expressing their own unique individualism, and therefore the whole picture of humanity, each spectacle person being their fullest selves, contributes to the whole picture itself.
Yeah, right.
Whereas this gentleman here, you know, he's kind of stereotyping in a sense, labeling, packaging certain folks in certain ways. Does he maybe not realize that that is kind of, you know, going against maybe his own desires or wishes or wants of how he should be acting to create the future? As Gandhi said, you know, be the change that you want to be in the world. Maybe people should be a little bit more open-minded and nuanced, so that if they do want unity, you know, utopia, whatever you want to call it, they would think in such ways as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, actually.
That was a bit philosophical.
No, actually, there's the way you put it is that each person in the development of his or her personality will, the more he or she develops his or her own individuality, the more, this is our quote now, John Stuart Mill, the more valuable they become to themselves, and also the more valuable they become to others. Yeah. So I certainly believe that, but I also believe that I don't believe, I'm not a religious person, and I don't want to pretend to be what I'm not. I'm not a religious person, I'm an atheist. I came from a very atheist home, and those values I'll take to my grave. But I'm not willing to be categorical and say, if you're religious, you have to be stupid, and if you are secular, you're probably more enlightened. There are many solid physicists I've met in the Muslim world. They have a firm handle on science, and they are religious. And there are many secular people who carry on as if they're so much smarter, but probably never got beyond high school biology. So I'm willing to see that one can people have been able to reconcile their religious view with their commitment to truth, science, and so forth, and that secularism has its faults, it has its limits, tends to be very hedonistic, tends to be very individualistic, it tends to resolve everything ultimately down to me and my navel. I think that's a lot of secularism. So, whereas religious people, they do tend to have a commitment to an ethical ideal, which I don't see in secular people. So I'm willing to see good and bad in religious people and in secular people.
So moderacy in the middle way then is the way to prize truth in certain regards?
I would say a certain amount of humility. Don't be so certain that your way is the right way just because it's not religious.
Yeah,
a certain humility is in order, and also a recognition that you can find good and bad in religion as well as in secular culture.
Yeah, just like being open-minded to both sides, the left side, the right side, upwards, downwards, all
I
that
think
stuff.
you should apply the same standard across the board. You're looking for truth, you're looking for justice, and you shouldn't be so confident that truth and justice are a monopoly of either religious people or of secular people.
There was something else I wanted to say, but it slipped my damn mind. Alright, no worries. In terms of
Hold on for 1 second, let's see if we can open the window. Maybe.
oh yeah, sure. You don't have a fan?
No.
Why not? What do you mean? Come on, man. That's settlement money. Come on, man. Buy a fan, man.
That's settlement money.
All right. I'll wait for you to come back in a second. Has Dr. Norman Finkelstein, I noticed you pronounced it Finkelstein, not Finkelstein.
That's correct.
That's correct. Yes,
It's
sir.
incorrect if you're German.
Either. Say it again.
If you're a German, EI is pronounced like I,
Oh.
and IE like E, but my parents pronounced it E like E, Finkelstein, so that's what I do.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. Has the doctor himself ever participated in cancel culture?
Yeah, as a young man, I was horrible.
Really?
Yes, our assumption was, anyway, we possess truth. Our truth was called, it means nothing to you or your generation. Our truth was called Marxism, Leninism, Mao Zedong thought. Namely, if you want to know truth, read Marx, read Lenin, and read Chairman Mao. And that's all you had to do. You didn't have to read anything else. All you had to do was read those three individuals, then you possessed truth, and anybody who disagreed with them was clearly wrong. And we used to call them bourgeois. They were bourgeois, or we would call them petty bourgeois. We had these ready-made labels. Nowadays you're called a racist, a sexist, a transphobe, a homophobe, a misogynist, you know. We had our labels also. And I was totally immersed in that cancel culture. The difference was, you know, we had no power.
Oh, gotcha.
Who cared about Maoists, you know, outside if you were a Maoist? So we had no actual, we caused no actual harm to anyone because we were nutty leftists. We were just a cult, you know.
Oh,
so
how much does that justify it though?
It doesn't, no, it's an embarrassment to me.
Sure, okay.
But I'm glad I don't have buried in my closet skeletons of people whose lives I destroyed. I didn't destroy anyone's life. The only one's life who was destroyed was mine. First of all, by being an idiot as a young man, and then later, as I think I got progressively more clear-headed, then I paid the price. I think it's fair to say. But I didn't. We were too marginal. We were too irrelevant to have any impact.
what got you to shift your position, to think differently, to evolve?
Well,
What was it?
it was very simple.
Yeah.
After Mao Zedong died in China, the whole thing was reversed.
Gotcha.
And we just assumed every person in China loved Chairman Mao, loved what he was doing, and we were there. Then it was kind of a shock, and I had to acknowledge the fact that a lot of what I assumed to be true was not correct, and it forced me to rethink my whole life's work.
Interesting.